Today I'm going to finish what I started, heated bed upgrade. Let's start with the problem. So back in one of my previous videos, I upgraded the bed on my Monoprice Mini Pro, and I used this unheated bed tray to hold my print surface, and I wanted to add the heater back onto this bed, which I just didn't design a place for on the original bed tray. So that is what I'm going to fix today. A couple quick notes before I get too far into everything. There are really two parts of this bed assembly. We've got the bed tray on top that holds the print surface, and then the bed assembly, which controls essentially any of the motion that happens in these pieces. Another thing, everything you see in this gray color, that's in PETG, everything else is in PLA. So let's look at the new design. On the left here, you can see the previous design. This is the bed tray that would hold the print surface. I'm using a glass bed to print on, and that works great. The new design, you'll see a lot of similarities between the two. For instance, these bed trays, they're just the same, just smaller. These tray spacers are longer. You'll also notice they have more holes to hold the heated bed, as well as to hold this cross piece that goes between the two spacers to hold that heated bed. On to assembly. I think the assembly for this is pretty straightforward. There are a few notes that I want to hit on. These holes in these spacer pieces are not centered. They should be on the outside. That's just where they needed to be for holding that bed heater. Like I noted earlier, I'll put a full parts list in the description, but any of these screws you see me using in the next minute or so are M3 16mm screws. Also, a big change from the last design is I basically omitted any nuts in the bed tray assembly, so everything just should thread into the plastic. Once we've got those three pieces connected, we can just remove those lock nuts and press everything together. The bed heater did come with these little springs, which are really important. They keep the heated bed farther away from the plastic pieces so they don't melt or warp or anything like that. Just make sure those springs are on and then press everything into place and rethread those lock nuts. Make sure you thread them down far enough so that the threaded portions bite into the locking bits so they don't back out or anything like that. I found it easy to do most of it by hand, but then used a pair of pliers just to tighten down the last little bit. For the bed trays at the ends, again, pretty similar. 16mm long screws just through the end trays and threading into the plastic on the tray spacers. I would recommend printing the bed trays, the red portion pieces here, in PETG as well. I just wasn't able to get them to stick without having heat on the bed to begin with. I plan on reprinting them in PETG. There we go. I think the most difficult part is complete. Next, we just need to add on the leveling hardware so that this can actually sit on that assembly on the printer. So it's just a screw. I use 20 millimeter, but longer would probably be better, give you a little bit more range. Then put a washer, half of a ballpoint pen spring, another washer, and then a nut on the end. You'll also want to put these black nut holders on once you get everything assembled. There we go. All of the leveling hardware is on, and this piece is done. The most difficult part of attaching the heated bed back to the printer is actually plugging the heated bed back in, and by difficult, I mean you have to flip the printer over to plug it back into the main board because you have to take the bottom off. I just slipped the cable through the slot in the chassis and then just set the leveling hardware into those nut holders, and I did plug the heated bed in off camera. And with that, we're all set. I did make a mistake when attaching that heated bed. You'll notice that the bed is floating above the tray holder. So I just went and tightened those lock nuts to get everything to sit a little bit lower down so that the heated bed is not pressing up on the print surface. One last note here is I do use this adjustable Z spacer on the Z axis just to make leveling a bit easier as well. And we're done. Just level the printer and you're all ready to go. Thanks for watching.